Growing up on a farm, I realized that if I wanted to see more of the world than a trip to the local tractor supply store, I'd have to join the military. We weren't dirt poor, but we weren't exactly middle class either. My mom made my clothes, and vacations were unheard of. Hand-stacking bales of hay, straw, and alfalfa took up the better part of my day from the age of 7 onward. When I graduated high school, against my parents' wishes, my best friend and I joined the Marines. Holy moly. 4 years in the Corps. We spent time at 2 stateside bases but eventually were stationed in South Korea and Japan. Because of cultural differences, we were encouraged to spend most of our off-duty time in American-friendly bars and entertainment districts. My buddy, Navarro, and I saw as many tourist attractions as possible, knowing we'd likely never have another chance to see that part of the world again. I spent half my money on girls and tried to send the rest home to help out. Our time back home wasn't exactly exciting. Mostly guard duty. We didn't exactly avoid the ladies, though. Navarro had to get treated for clap a few times. I played it safer, using protection and avoiding any STDs. We participated in all the extracurricular activities we could, including the many diverse contests my fellow Marines could dream up. By the time we were honorably discharged, everyone called me Army. Even though my name is Johnson Bostic, Navarro kept calling me Army after we got back home, and the name stuck. Locals started calling me Army, thinking it was a slight to my Marine service. I never corrected them. I learned to let insults roll off my back in the service. It took a lot to make me mad. Belford, our farming town, while not tiny, didn't offer many job opportunities outside of agriculture or construction for anyone without a college degree. Sure, we had the usual grocery and dry goods stores, but we weren't big enough to attract any of the big box retailers. Surprisingly, we had 2 banks and a couple of fast food joints. I didn't want to live far from my parents. While they weren't ancient, I wanted to be there to help when needed. Of course, they wanted me to find a better life. I'd seen the world and wanted to settle down. Growing up in farming, I decided on construction. I was a hard worker, loading and unloading everything from bricks, blocks, drywall, scaffolding, and of course, lumber. I was sent to deliver and hand stack in places forklifts couldn't reach. No stranger to hard work, I could work all day without tiring. Sure, I'd be wiped out at the end of the day, but after a shower, I'd have all the energy in the world to go out and grab a few beers with my buddies. I met Kaitlyn at Higgins' restaurant. It was love at first sight. She was the most gorgeous woman I'd ever seen, and I'd seen a lot. I had to ask her out 30 times before she finally said yes. I think she did it to get me to stop asking. We clicked. We were peas in a pod. I can't imagine 2 people being more compatible. She had it all: looks, personality, sense of humor, and she had curves in all the right places and knew how to use them. After 9 months of steady dating, I popped the question. We were married 6 months later. Kaitlyn and I were both 24 and couldn't have been happier. She grew up in a neighboring town, so she was local. We talked about starting a family, but agreed we needed to save enough money to raise a child without putting undue strain on our meager income. My dad advised me to make more money before having kids and pushed me to seek better job opportunities. He was right, we were really scraping by. By the time we paid rent and covered monthly expenses, we were almost broke. We were basically living paycheck to paycheck, and after 2 years of marriage, we barely had enough in the bank to buy a couple of cheap tires for my truck. Somerville, the 3rd largest city in our state, was 40 miles from our hometown of Belford. Kensington was a burgeoning bedroom community where many who worked in Somerville lived. Only 22 miles from Belford, Kensington was constantly opening new businesses to serve its growing population. One such establishment was Stokes Fitness Palace, a state-of-the-art gym for both men and women. Army, you won't believe the exciting news I heard today, Kaitlyn announced one afternoon. Oh yeah, is the dollar store having another sale? I joked. No, silly. My friend Danny had lunch at the restaurant today, and she told me about a new gym that opened in Kensington. They're interviewing potential hires next week or so. She was told the starting salary for new hires. Honey, if they hire you, you'll make about 30% more than what you bring home in salary and tips from the restaurant. You could almost make as much as I do. Isn't that great? She declared. We can start saving for a family. I want us to finally have that baby we've been planning for so long. I get it, but what do you know about fitness and gyms? Don't you need some kind of certification? I don't know their requirements for any of these positions, and I'll never know unless I interview. Connie said she'll come in early and cover for me so I can go to Stokes Fitness Palace to interview, and I'll stay a few extra hours and cover for her tonight. Danny said she heard they take walk-ins, no appointment necessary. Honey, I don't think it would hurt to see what job opportunities they are offering, and there aren't many other prospects in Belford. If you want to get the job, you'll have a commute every day. I'm not getting my hopes up, but sure, give it a shot. After work the next day. You won't believe this, Army, but they offered me a job. At that Stokes Fitness Palace in Kensington you told me about? Yes. They'll pay me a starting salary that's 25% higher than my current wages, and after a 2-week performance review, it goes up to 30%. Just like Danny said. That sounds too good to be true. Exactly what will you be doing for them, Kaitlyn? That's the best part, Army. They have their own on-the-job training program. They'll teach me about all their strength training machines and equipment. Once I'm up to speed, they'll put me on the floor as a manager. I'll assist anyone who doesn't have experience with the equipment. They said that in time, if I put in the effort, I could become a trainer, which could add another 20% to my salary. Isn't that awesome? Kaitlyn excitedly declared. When do they want you to start? I told them I needed at least a week's notice at the restaurant. I didn't want to leave them in a bind. They said that was fine. You're okay with this, Army? Looks like we can start saving more for a family. As soon as we think we can afford it, I want to have a baby with you, honey, Kaitlyn cooed. Nothing would make me happier, I reassured her. At first, Kaitlyn dressed conservatively for her new job, typical slacks with colorful button-down shirts. After a month, she bought 5 pairs of yoga pants with matching tank tops. She said her attire needed to reflect the gym's atmosphere. I could understand that. 3 months later, she started wearing short, form-fitting athletic shorts. I didn't like it because she showed some toe cleavage. She just dismissed me as being overly protective and showed me pictures taken at the gym, proving that all the other girls dressed similarly. She even started getting tips from some of the guys she assisted in various ways. To quell my anxieties, one day I left work early and unexpectedly stopped by Stokes Fitness Palace. I observed her closely for a few minutes before she spotted me and ran over to greet me. She wasn't doing anything inappropriate or flirtatious that caused me concern. Honey, what are you doing here? She enthusiastically asked. I just wanted to visit where my wife works. This is a very nice facility. I'm impressed. I'm glad you stopped by, Army. Come on, let me introduce you to my supervisor, she insisted. She led me to a huge man. Milburn, this is my husband, Johnson Bostick. Everyone calls him Army. Army? This is Milburn Jenkins. Everyone calls him Vorkath for obvious reasons. As we shook hands, Vorkath tried to subtly intimidate me with his handshake. He was built like a bull, but I didn't flinch. He was 6 feet 2, compared to my 5 feet 9. I know my weight is a solid 175 pounds, and I estimated his lean muscle mass to be at least 245 pounds. He was incredibly muscular, clearly a bodybuilder, a perfect model for the fitness center. We both grinned at Kaitlyn. Someone called him away, so Kaitlyn gave me a tour and explained much about their operation. I saw 2 other female colleagues dressed similarly to her. I was glad I stopped by. It put my mind at ease considerably. Not long after that visit, Kaitlyn started coming home with a heightened libido. We had passionate sex almost every night. She attributed her increased sex drive to the workouts, fitness, and healthy eating habits she was promoting for me. She'd lost some fat and replaced it with muscle. Not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth, I embraced her new energetic lust with equal enthusiasm, often leaving us breathless after each encounter. She never mentioned any of the guys she worked with, even Vorkath, which I took as a good sign. Then came the day that changed our lives forever. On Friday evening, Kaitlyn announced a change in her schedule. Honey, you know I don't usually work weekends, but they're having a big promotion at the gym tomorrow, and they need all hands on deck. There's a very special event happening at 7 p.m. It's a private function not open to the public, but they want all the couples to be there. They want me to introduce you to everyone as my husband. Can you especially come? Please? Pretty please? She asked, batting her eyelashes at me in her most seductive way. What kind of promotion, Kaitlyn? You know I'm not signing up for any of their programs. I get plenty of exercise making deliveries. I promise they won't try to sign you up for anything. So what? Winning some kind of prize or something? Maybe, she said evasively. After this promotional event, we can start expanding our family sooner than planned. You'll need to be there to see it. I'm not allowed to say anything more. Okay, I guess I'll show up and see what the big deal is. That night, she wore me out. I was practically immobile when I woke up Saturday morning. She was gone by the time I woke up Saturday morning. I called my buddy Navarro and spent part of the day helping him work on his car. He's always doing something to make it a little nicer or boost the horsepower. I told him about my conversation with Kaitlyn about tonight's mysterious event. I shared that, while I couldn't put my finger on anything specific, my spider sense was tingling. "Hey man," Navarro began, "why don't I come along tonight for backup if you have any worries? And on top of that, come over and let me show you a gadget I won in a poker game a few weeks ago. It's a tiny pen recorder. It can record up to 70 hours on a single charge. It has a built-in USB adapter for downloading recordings. A twist at the top turns it on. It writes perfectly like a pen, so no one knows. A buddy of mine lost it, and I bought it to record his girlfriend's orgasms during sex. I tested it. It picks up clear audio from 40 feet away. Whew, this is like a spy gadget. I don't think I'll need it, but it won't hurt to have it just in case. Thanks, Navarro. It was a cool spring evening, so I wore a light jacket with zippered pockets. I put the pen in my inside breast pocket. We showed up at Stokes Fitness Palace a few minutes before 7. I made sure to twist the pen's top as I'd practiced earlier. A burly man at the door asked for ID. I showed him my driver's license, and he nodded. As Navarro was about to come in with me, the guy stopped him, saying, "Sorry, pal, this is a private event, and you're not invited. Just Mr. Bostic." I looked the guy straight in the eye and said, "No problem. Come on, Navarro, let's go. If you can't come in, then neither can I. Hey man, tell Kaitlyn Bostic her husband got served," as we started walking back to Navarro's car. "Hold on, sir. You're a VIP guest. Okay, we'll let you in. Come on, but I need to take your cell phones before you go in. As I said, this is a private event, and no recording or photography is allowed." We reluctantly handed over our phones, and he put them each in a manila envelope, writing our names on them. "They will be returned to you upon leaving the facility. For your safety and security, these envelopes will remain sealed until returned." He put our phones into one of many containers holding similar envelopes. He locked the door behind us as we entered the main gym. We saw 2 large tables with latches in the middle of the gym with a large group of men standing around, working out or warming up for something. Our escort told Navarro to wait in the gym while he took me to an office where Kaitlyn was waiting. I gave Navarro a nod that I was okay. He relaxed and started wandering around the gym. We entered an office and the door closed behind us. I saw Milburn Vorkath Jenkins sitting at a table opposite me. Kaitlyn was beside him, wearing a dark robe. 5 other guys suddenly appeared from the side as if they'd been waiting for my arrival. "Hey Kaitlyn, what's going on? Why are you in a robe instead of regular clothes?" I asked. Kaitlyn looked at Vorkath with apprehension after my question. He nodded at her before ordering, "Show him." Kaitlyn, almost trembling, asked, "See, can you be sure he won't remember anything? Not a single thing?" "I swear on my life, sweetheart. Go ahead and show him." Kaitlyn removed her robe, revealing the skimpiest bikini I'd ever seen in my life. 3 postage stamp-sized pieces of fabric clung to her body with thin strings. There was almost nothing left to the imagination. "Kaitlyn, I demand you tell me what's happening. Why are you practically naked in this room in front of all these men? I don't see any other women around. Are you cheating on me? Is this your way of dumping me?" I asked angrily. "Army, it's not what you think." "Well, it's kind of like that, but not really. Honey, it's amazing. After tonight, we finally have enough money to start building our family. We won't have to wait any longer to start having kids. That's actually the point of all this. You're doing this for us." "What are you talking about, Kaitlyn? I'm not comfortable with this at all. Put your clothes back on, and let's get out of here right now. Let's go." As I reached for her hand, Vorkath stood up and stepped in front of her. "I'm afraid I can't allow that. Kaitlyn's here tonight. Tomorrow I'll get her back home safely. But tonight, she belongs to me, and there's nothing you can do to stop that," he arrogantly declared. Damn it, I can't let this happen, but as I moved forward, the 5 guys behind me quickly surrounded me and told me to back off. "Don't hurt him," Kaitlyn yelled. "If a hair on his head is harmed, the deal is off." Vorkath acknowledged her remark and nodded, signaling the guys to be careful with me. "Why don't I fill you in on the situation, Army? What did you do in the Army?" "You can tell me after these guys back off. If they don't, I might just lose it, and then they'll have to seriously injure or even kill me to subdue me. I hope you can live with that, Kaitlyn. I hope you can look your parents in the eye and know that you are responsible for my death." Kaitlyn gasped and started to say something but fell silent as Vorkath waved his hand, signaling his goons to back off. They did. "I was never in the army. I served in the Marines. My nickname is Army." "Why did they do that? Did your buddies think you weren't good enough for the Marines?" He chuckled. "Someone had better tell me what's going on here or there's going to be trouble," I demanded, a little louder than polite. I was really getting pissed off. Okay, Army, I get it. Yes, here's the deal. I'm quite fond of your little wife, Kaitlyn. I've been flirting with her heavily for a long time to try to get into her pants, but she wouldn't budge. We've kissed and cuddled plenty. I know I've had her coming home in various states of disrepair numerous times, but she refused to let me sample the goods. I talked with her a lot about what to do. When she shared that you two were trying to build a nest to grow your family, I had a brainstorm. I told her I could put out some feelers for an arm wrestling competition. If I could garner enough interest, she could split the prize money with the winner, if the winner was also guaranteed a night of uninhibited passion with her. At first, she rejected this idea, but over time she started asking me about how much money we were talking about, and how many contestants might be involved. I knew I had her hooked then. I just needed to develop the specifics for my plan. Needless to say, my initial apprehension escalated into full-blown fury. I was half an inch away from going completely ballistic, goons be damned. I was barely holding my composure. I remembered the pen in my pocket and sat down to let this guy talk. Vorkath continued, "I know she's just as attracted to me as I am to her. I told her that if she worked with me, she could walk away with $20,000 and share a night of unrestrained sex with me." She asked how we could do that. I asked her to make a naked masturbation video at home alone, which I could show prospective contestants to generate their interest in the competition for the cash prize and a night with her. The entry fee was set at $1,000. Once enough people expressed interest, I began setting it up. But there was still a problem. The cheating angle bothered her too much, so I had to brainstorm again. I asked her, "What if you let your husband, Army, also have a chance to enter the competition? He wouldn't even have to go through all the qualifying rounds. He'd arm wrestle the top contestant to claim the championship. If he miraculously won, she wouldn't have to provide any services beyond a little flirtation, and you two would walk away with all the money." The slim potential that he could win was enough to get her to consider it. I tried to control my breathing. I decided that if the goons made another move to grab me, I'd go for it. Kicks, punches, elbow strikes, headbutts, whatever it took. Nothing was off the table, even biting. I wouldn't fight fair, and while they might take me down, they'd get hurt in the process. I said nothing. Vorkath took a sip of water and continued, "She still had the sticking point that you would never allow such a thing to happen without adversely affecting your marriage, possibly ending it. The girl loves you, I'll give her that, so I devised a solution for that too. After you lose and the competition is over, the 5 guys here would take you back to this office and get you drunk. Then they'd give you a dose of ketamine, a drug used by veterinarians to sedate horses and other animals. People find that it works great as a date rape drug because it not only erases your memory for about 24 hours, but it also metabolizes quickly in the system and can be difficult to detect on a drug test. Its street names are Special K, Cat Valium, or Kit Kat. That's why I can tell you everything truthfully without reprisal, because you won't remember a word said to you tonight. Nothing at all." So, there were 40 men who signed up for the chance at cash prize and a night with your wife. I'm the strongest man in this building. I've let all of them think they had a fair chance at winning, but none of them had a chance. I'll win $40,000, split it with Kaitlyn, and have sex with her every which way all night long while you're drunk and amnesiac. Tomorrow, you'll be driven home to sleep, and I'll drive your wife home after I can't get an erection anymore. When you finally wake up, she'll tell you she won $20,000 in a competition, and you lovers can start having kids at your leisure. You'll remember nothing, she'll have the money, and I'll have had my fill of her for the night." "You just made a big mistake," Milburn, I coaxed. "Oh yeah, what's that?" he scoffed. "First, you just told these 5 goons about your plan. They are here to keep me occupied and drug me while you benefit. Why would they want to hold me here at this point?" I asked. "That's a fair question," he mused. "These 5 know better than anyone else that they don't stand a chance against me, so they aren't even participating. They've been fully prepaid by your lovely wife here to take care of you and ensure everything goes according to plan, so they won't be competing tonight. Kaitlyn paid them. I was confused. That's right, you bastard, the guy to my left blurted out. She blew all 5 of us this morning. I'm actually jealous of you, Army. Your wife really knows how to suck dick. I'm thinking of hiring her to teach my wife how to do it like she did, he taunted. Kaitlyn gave a weak smile as I asked, is that true? You all blew these 5 guys before I got here? She was composed enough to look at the floor rather than lie to me. Okay, then your second mistake is, do they want to kill me? Because there's no way they're getting me back to this office without knocking me unconscious or killing me. Kaitlyn will lose a good chunk of her $20,000 whore money on my reconstructive surgeries. You know, dental implants, broken bones, internal injuries. Kaitlyn, just a trip to the emergency room costs $1,000. Our deductible is $12,000, so she'll have to give up more than half her money, unless, of course, these guys finish the job and kill me. And I don't see them wanting to do that. Not for a blowjob, anyway. Plus, they'd have to worry about one of the others talking. The third problem is, I think ketamine has to be injected intravenously. You think I'm going to wake up and find an injection site and not suspect foul play? How about an overdose like the kid who died when cops stopped him and gave him a shot? Okay, it's clear Kaitlyn seems okay with my death. Kaitlyn managed a bow. One of the goons said, oral medication works fine. And I know what I'm doing. Kaitlyn told me her weight, and I've got the right dose to knock her out and make her forget everything. Sorry to disappoint you guys, but I have absolutely no interest in participating in any event or winning, especially anything involving her. If she's willing to consider this nonsense and become a whore herself, you can have her. Do whatever you want with her. I'm out here, I said angrily. I'm afraid we can't let you do that, Army, Vorkath repeated. A deal's a deal. I promised your wife that you'd arm wrestle the winner of tonight's contest for her money and honor. Then I promised her you wouldn't remember anything said and done tonight. What honor? Clearly she has none. I don't care who she fucks, sucks, or for how long anymore. Right now, I want nothing more than to divorce that backstabbing bitch as soon as possible. Kaitlyn began to sob at my harsh words and sentiment. And like I said, I'm not coming back, so just kill me now. Never mind anything he says, Kaitlyn. Like I told you, he won't remember anything tomorrow. He'll be the loving husband you always had. I promise you that, Vorkath reassured her. Kaitlyn gave a weak smile at his encouragement after my vicious threat to divorce her. I'll tell you what, I'll participate, as long as you know that you'll have to kill me afterward, I said. Enough chit-chat. Let's get out there and get this started, shall we? Vorkath insisted, mocking my threat. The 5 guys escorted me to the gym floor. As the contestants saw my wife's nearly naked body, they went wild with applause and whistles. I looked around and didn't see my friend Navarro. Where is he? I asked. Your friend? He ultimately decided not to stay. We didn't want to force him, so we let him go. Sorry, one of the 5 informed me. I knew Navarro didn't leave willingly. They'd forced him out. I also knew he wouldn't abandon me and had to be parked somewhere nearby. The problem was, I had no way to signal him that I needed help. Vorkath wore a light jacket to mask his overly muscular physique. He didn't want to openly intimidate any contestants and remove their hope of pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Clearly, most of the guys weren't locals and didn't know him. He started addressing the crowd. All right, gentlemen, this is what we've all been waiting for. All 40 of you have contributed a $1,000 entry fee and signed the rules, waiver of liability, and release form. Stokes Fitness Palace will not be held responsible for any injuries related to this competition. This is a 2 out of 3 elimination tournament. If you lose once, you still have another chance to compete and win the tournament. The best 2 out of 3 will win. If you lose twice, you're out. Now, our girl, Kaitlyn here, wants a fair and square contest. She insists that her husband, Army, also be given a chance to defend her virtue. He'll wait and wrestle the #1 contender. When he loses, the winner takes all. Everyone understand and agree? All the men nodded in acknowledgement. Excellent, he continued. The winner will receive the championship trophy and a $20,000 cash prize. Our girl, Kaitlyn, here will receive $20,000 regardless of who wins, and the winner gets a night of uninhibited passion with her. Sex any way you want and until you can't take it anymore. You've all seen her video. One lucky guy is going to have the best night of his life. I heard someone say, that's big money for a night of sex, but she seems worth every penny. Everyone cheered and shouted, expressing their excitement for the competition while Kaitlyn wiggled and swayed her body seductively to grab their attention. We have two highly respected gentlemen here tonight, Mr. Braham Albright and Mr. Volkath Saunders, who are recognized referees from the World Arm Wrestling Federation, and they will officiate all the competitions tonight. They are impartial, and their word is final without question. We have two arm wrestling tables with hand latches that will run concurrently to speed things up. The hand latches are there to give you more power and leverage. 2 matches at the same time will allow every man here a fair chance to win. We have a random name generator to pair up and set up the first 20 matches. All the results will be recorded, and then the computer will generate the second set of pairings, and so on and so forth, until we are left with 2 final matches. If you've been eliminated from the competition, you're encouraged to stay and cheer on your buddies in their matches. The 2-arm wrestling tables were identical and designed for standing matches, not seated. They had elbow pads where each wrestler would place their elbow for wrestling to avoid discomfort and prevent injuries. The touch pads are raised pads on opposite sides of the table that each corresponding wrestler is trying to push their opponent's hand onto. A projector displayed the paired names onto a screen from an overhead projector. The order was easily discernible and clear to all participants. The 2 tables were approximately 10 feet, 3 meters, apart. Kaitlyn stood between the tables and gave a last-minute announcement. Hey guys, I wish everyone the best of luck tonight. And to prove I'm serious, right before you wrestle, if you need a little extra motivation, feel free to give my breasts a little squeeze for good luck, she giggled. I have something to say, I yelled, cutting her off. I'm about to get killed after tonight's event. The crowd gasped. Pay attention to these 5 guys here. I pointed to the 5 goons. They're tasked with keeping me from leaving before the event is over and killing me afterward if I don't win. I'm counting on there being some honorable men here tonight. I just hope there are enough to ensure I make it out of this door alive. Kaitlyn here is an adult and can do whatever she wants. If she wants to give her body away to the winner, and for money, that's up to her. As for myself, I hope to compete, and if I win, I'll leave with the winnings and my wife. If not, at least I'll leave with my life. I'll be right here in front of you all. You'll be able to see me forced out or into some dark corner and subdued. I got some very serious looks from the referees. As I looked around, some men seemed shaken. No one is getting killed here tonight, Vorkath yelled, glaring at me. Of course, Mr. Bostic, or Army as he is called, will be leaving the premises before the event is over. Now let's get to it and take Kaitlyn up on her offer to grope her, feel her boobs. I know from personal inspection they're real, he said. The guys cheered and yelled even more. The first 4 contestants took her up on her offer, each taking a turn groping her breasts before their match began. The referees reiterated all the rules for each competition to ensure compliance. When they asked ready, each man nodded in confirmation. When they said G.O., the match began. You have never heard such grunting and groaning as each man put forth his maximum effort to win against each opponent. Everyone not competing at that moment cheered on the participants. It was a heated melee. I sat right in the middle of the crowd and looked at my wife with disgust as she readily let other men play with her breasts. Breasts I had mistakenly thought were mine and mine alone. There was a boiling cauldron deep in my soul for her betrayal and humiliation at her blatant brazenness. With 2 matches happening concurrently, and lasting less than 3 minutes, the first round was completed in under 30 minutes. The second round allowed for double elimination, taking another half hour, so after the first hour, half the contestants were eliminated. The remaining 20 contestants were soon randomly paired by the computer. Kaitlyn decided to make it even more interesting for the remaining contestants. She allowed groping of both her crotch and breasts as an encouragement to the remaining contestants. Every man took advantage. It was disgusting to witness her being groped and pawed. However, she seemed to enjoy the attention and encouraged each man to help himself. Occasionally, she would look in my direction and smile. Kaitlyn kept looking at me as if urging me to join the fray, but every time she gestured, I just turned my head to the side, ignoring her. I could tell she was excited and didn't care a bit because I wouldn't remember anything. After 5 more matches played out over the next 15 minutes, there were 10 winners and 10 losers. Another quarter hour narrowed the field down to just 10 remaining contestants because an hour and a half had elapsed by this point. Testosterone permeated the room, fueled by masculinity, prize money, and an anticipated night of passion with my wife. The atmosphere was palpable. One of the goons leaned in close. "You're just talking trash, punk. Okay, I'll personally give you a good beating. When you wake up, we'll tell you that you fell down the stairs." The next 30 minutes narrowed the contestants down to the semi-finalists. Of course, all contestants freely kissed and groped Kaitlyn, helping themselves to feel all she had to offer with their hands before it was their turn at the table. Eventually, Vorkath wrestled another muscular man in a semi-final match. Vorkath easily won the set, leaving him the one I would face, exactly as he had predicted. The referees advised Vorkath that he could rest and recover for 15 minutes before having to face me in the final match. He laughed at them, saying I was just an insignificant little fly to him and he needed no recovery time to face me. His win was a certainty. I took off my jacket and tied it around my waist. I didn't want to risk losing it. I was escorted to the table for the final event. The referee stood ready to officiate the final match of the night to declare the clear winner. As I reluctantly stood there facing this huge man, it was clear that not a single man in the room gave me any chance of winning. They were chuckling and giggling in acknowledgement that Kaitlyn would be Vorkath's prize, and heard some say they envied him for his night with the hot fox. As I stood before the table, the room finally fell silent, and I began to speak. "Where's the 40,000 prize money?" "I want to see it," I asked. Win or lose, I didn't want any reason to be near that office again. "Why would you want to see it, kid? You don't stand a chance of winning anyway," Vorkath boasted. "That may be," I affirmed. "However, everyone here is getting their inspiration from my wife before their match. I just want to see my money. That doesn't violate any rules, does it?" I questioned. "Besides, I want to make sure I get it if I win." That got a big laugh. I smiled. "I guess not, little buddy." He nodded to one of the 5 who disappeared into the office to retrieve the locked cash box. He opened it for me to see. So far, so good. Could one of the referees do a quick count to ensure everything is correct? Vorkath nodded again, starting to show annoyance. "Mr. Albright, would you please be so kind?" Referee Braham Albright picked it up, quickly sorted through, and confirmed the total to be $40,000. "Sir," I requested, "if you don't mind, I'd like you to hold on to it until the end of the final match so it can be awarded immediately. I'd also like you to ensure my safety. As I've told everyone before, my life is in danger, and I doubt I'll be allowed to leave the building whether I win or lose." Bram looked at Vorkath, who said, "Go ahead, Mr. Albright. Your reputation is impeccable. We completely trust you," after which Bram tucked the 2-inch thick wad of 400 crisp $100 bills close to his body for safekeeping. "Satisfied, Vorkath?" I scoffed. "Of course you'll let me leave. Nobody here can stop me." His expression told a different story. I suspected at least 2, maybe 3, goons were waiting outside for me. "Completely," I confirmed. "I'm just here for the money. I'm done with that bimbo. She's a fantastic piece, but who wants to live with a woman with no morals? I genuinely want to leave her here, win or lose." Kaitlyn glared. "Fine. Enough delays. Let's end this so I can get to my wife. Come here, sweetheart. Give your man one more taste of that sweet honey. It'll be all mine in a few minutes," he boasted. Kaitlyn moved towards him, delivering the most passionate French kiss I'd ever seen her give. Her hands kneaded his crotch in front of the entire room as Vorkath pulled her top down and tasted her breast right in front of me. I've never felt such rage and humiliation in my life. Then a cold dread washed over me. After he'd finished his delights with Kaitlyn, she moved towards me, intending to inspire a similar engagement. I stopped her dead in her tracks. "Don't ever touch me again, Kaitlyn," I warned, my voice clear. "I don't want a woman with no morals. I might not remember a thing about tonight. Tomorrow I'll either be dead or beaten to a pulp by your lover's boys. But I hope you never forget what I'm about to say for the rest of your life. $20,000 for a night of unrestrained sex might make you an expensive hooker, but it still makes you a hooker. You're nothing more than a cheating whore, and if I had my way, I'd divorce you right here, right now. Get your filthy ass behind me so I don't have to look at you. The sight of you alone makes me want to throw up all over your boyfriend." Kaitlyn burst into tears at my harsh words. I heard gasps from the crowd. Both referees frowned. I didn't know if they disliked my behavior or sensed something dark was afoot. I hoped they realized my participation was involuntary. I planned to have someone call the cops and let Vorkath carry out whatever plans he had to silence me in front of 40 witnesses. That could wait. As Kaitlyn moved behind me as requested, Vorkath protected his spoils for the night. "Who do you think you are? You can't talk to her like that," he commanded. "She's been my wife for a few years, but if I'm physically and mentally capable of fixing that mistake when I leave this building, she won't be anymore. She certainly won't be bearing any of my children," I declared. A thought suddenly dawned on me as the picture became clearer. "Enough, you little punk. Get your hands on the table. I'm gonna put you in your place and shut that mouth of yours," Vorkath ordered. The crowd roared its approval of Vorkath's boldness, knowing he'd make good on his promise. Knowing I had no other choice, I placed my relatively small hand on the table to oppose the massive muscle Vorkath presented. We clasped hands, ensuring there'd be no slippage or trickery. Referee Volkov Saunders reviewed the rules one last time before signaling the start. I heard Kaitlyn behind me warn Vorkath not to hurt me. If he had his way, I was sure he'd break my arm, or even rip it off. I wasn't sure if she intended to kill me, as I told everyone there that he planned to kill me or inflict grievous bodily harm during the arm wrestling contest. I knew she wanted me subdued and forced to drink that ketamine. I honestly didn't care, nor had the time to think about it. I gave it my all. Our hands remained motionless. It felt like I was pushing against a block of steel. He called for a 30-second hold, which felt like an eternity. Then, he loudly boasted, "I'm gonna school you on muscle therapy, little buddy." He grinned, and began an inexorable press of my hand towards the table. My hand and wrist trembled like a leaf in his grasp as I resisted the downward arc with all my might. But it wasn't enough. As if in slow motion, my wrist slammed against the padding as the referee declared the match in Vorkath's favor. The room erupted in thunderous applause at his victory over the loud-mouthed husband. I stepped away from the table for a few seconds to take a deep breath and shake out my arm, shrugging off the disappointment. "Best of 3, I reminded, immediately placing my hand back on the table. Vorkath laughed in my face. "Clearly, you don't know jack about muscles, kid. Fast twitch muscles are anaerobic. All the deep breaths in the world won't save you from certain defeat. By the time I'm done pounding your wife all night, she'll be too exhausted to touch herself for a week. I promise you she'll earn every penny of that 20 grand. The room again exploded in raucous agreement with Vorkath's statement. His pronouncements only fueled my anger. I tried to quell that anger and redirect it. Volkov again instructed and signaled us to begin. Vorkath plastered a wide grin on his face. Again, I pressed against him with all my strength. I used bracing and hip rotation for maximum leverage against him. After about 10 seconds, he began pressing down to secure his final victory. My arm trembled like a leaf again, shaking as every ounce of adrenaline fueled me. He'd pressed me down about a quarter of the way when I felt something. It was a strange feeling, like he'd reached his limit. My arm stopped shaking and locked into its task. I groaned aloud as I poured every ounce of strength into the effort. I gasped like a marathon runner. Then it happened. His hand yielded a quarter of its strength, as my unwavering strength pressed against his limited strength. An unbelieving crowd fell silent as they watched me force Vorkath's hand down towards his side of the table. I could almost feel the gas leaking from his tank as he weakened against the unwavering strength my arm provided. When the referee slapped his hand down to confirm the win, you could have heard a pin drop. The astonishment was unparalleled. He recoiled from the table in disbelief. "No," he screamed. "No way he lost to me. It was just a fluke. You'll fall, kid. I'll crush you like a bug. No more games, let's go," he ordered. He tossed his jacket aside and ripped his t-shirt off with both hands. His muscles gleamed under the lights as every aspect of his chiseled abs and shoulders became the envy of every man in the room. Well, maybe everyone except me. Vorkath raised his arm behind him like the Incredible Hulk and roared his frustration at the embarrassing defeat. I enjoyed watching him burn his energy as he raged. He slammed his elbow on the table, calling me out for the final match. One of us was about to suffer a second defeat and utter failure. He was bound and determined that it was me. I ignored his theatrics. I'd seen this type of posturing before. Once more, I performed my deep breathing exercises to enrich my blood oxygen before accepting the large man's challenge. I wanted this next match sooner rather than later before giving him a chance to rebuild his reserves. Volkov performed his professional duty and signaled the start. I knew Vorkath's rage would force him to expend his initial maximum strength to prevent a repeat of my unusual victory. He roared his fury, pushing my arm with all his might in one fell swoop. All I needed to do was keep my arm from going all the way down and wait him out. My wrist was only about an inch from being pinned. My hand and wrist again trembled like a leaf, shaking from his massive effort. That's all I could do to counter his surge. Then, I heard a voice call from behind me. Go, Vorkath. Crush him. Show that little punk who the real man is here. Finish him so I can shove you between my legs. Finish him. Now, Kaitlyn urged. The crowd went wild at Kaitlyn's bold and lustful encouragement. But Kaitlyn didn't anticipate the effect her words would have on me. Enraged, my body was infused with a fresh surge of adrenaline. In conjunction with my steady breathing pattern, I groaned as a new wave of power burst through the stalemate we'd been locked in for nearly 45 seconds. Our hands slowly lifted and began to move in the opposite direction. I felt his arm begin to give as I locked in my unrelenting pressure. Our hands went above and downward to move his backhand in a direction it did not want to go. He growled and twisted more, attempting to extract an additional ounce of torque from his leverage, but to no avail. With every reserve I had, I pushed his wrist onto the padded mat as Vorkath declared my victory. I had done it. I had beaten Vorkath 2 out of 3 times. It was finally over. Silence fell as Vorkath asked in astonishment, How in the hell did you do that? I've never lost to anyone your size. I have to know, he pleaded. I will answer your question if you agree to 2 conditions, I offered. Name them, he conceded. First, I will be awarded the winnings before the explanation, the full $40,000. Second, I want to leave here on my own after the explanation without anyone stopping me. Do I have your word? I stipulated. I wanted to send an additional plea to the crowd. Perhaps if I was injured tonight, someone would step up. Vorkath nodded in agreement. Go ahead and get the money, Bram. I took off my windbreaker and put it on. Bram handed me the cash, which I quickly stuffed into my windbreaker pocket. I want everyone here to know that Mr. Bostic won this contest fairly and squarely. Whether we like it or not, he is off limits. After he gives his explanation, he is free to leave here unhindered, Vorkath asserted. Kaitlyn just stood there in stunned silence. I knew the man was lying. One of the 5 goons was close by. I suspected the others were outside, ready to ambush me. Briefly reassured, I decided to tell everyone. My entire life I've worked on farms or in construction. I've handled heavy workloads day in and day out. I've done this work almost without cease throughout my life. I may not have developed the clearly defined bulging muscles in my arms that many others here do, but the muscles I developed have given me stamina and endurance beyond strength. When I joined the Marines, I was stationed for a couple of years with the 12th Marine Regiment stationed at Camp Hansen, Okinawa, Japan, and also at Camp Mujuk Marine Base in South Korea just outside Pohang near the East Coast. We had lots of downtime, but we still had to remain close to base. So we got very creative in developing creative ways to kill time with a lot of testosterone flooding the base, much like tonight here. Arm wrestling quickly became a popular way to relieve stress and boredom. We even got a little formal, developing weight classes. The best from each weight class would compete against the best from heavier weight classes to see how far we could go. After a year of arm wrestling, I'd never lost a match. One of the doctors on base gave me a special examination to determine how I could win against opponents nearly twice my size. He concluded that my arms were primarily served by slow twitch, aerobic muscles. Guys like you, who lift heavy weights for short bursts, develop fast twitch muscles that provide explosive power for short periods. My arms might not be as strong as many others, but I have stamina and endurance. My arms can go all day as long as I breathe and supply them with the necessary oxygen. The way I beat you isn't with sheer strength, but by outlasting you as your anaerobic muscles begin to run out of energy. While I was in the Marines, they nicknamed me Army for 2 reasons. The word Army means strong, and I also became notorious for my arms. So there you have it. I've explained it. Now I'll take my leave and let you guys do whatever you want to tonight. Where's my cell phone? I asked. I was handed the envelope and tore it open while glancing at the faces around me. They all seemed pretty friendly. I silently started walking towards the door. No one moved or uttered a word. They were still in shock. Then Kaitlyn called out to me. Honey, that was amazing. Wait a minute, I'll get us home, she pleaded. We need to talk. I heard a whisper. No kidding. From the side. I heard another person say, there aren't enough words in the world to smooth over her screw-up. I'll wait outside. Get dressed before we head home, I replied. She loudly requested that I come along. She was trying her hardest to lure me back into the office where I suspected I'd be overpowered by 1 or more goons. No, I need some fresh air. I'll go out first. We can talk out there or in the car. She took my comment as an encouraging sign that I would at least talk. I wanted it to be nothing more than a delaying tactic, buying me time to escape. She went back into the office to change back into her everyday clothes while I quickly made my way to the front door. Turn around, Marine. I berated myself as I looked outside. Seeing no one in the immediate vicinity, I hurried out to find Navarro. As he saw me appear, he flashed his lights. I knew he wouldn't abandon me. He was clearly keeping a very careful watch. A Marine watching the watch. As I was hurrying towards his car, I saw a group of 3 emerge from behind and SUV. They started running toward me. Marines do one thing, and that's physical training. Every Marine can run, maybe not sprint, but they can certainly run faster than most average civilians. I left the 3 in my wake and jumped into Navarro's car. Navarro decided not to wait and took off, tires squealing. I'd managed to escape with the memories of that night intact. I swear I wasn't going to leave you there alone, Army, Navarro quickly informed me. A couple of big guys shoved me out the door and threw my cell phone on the ground. They told me it was a closed event and I didn't receive a proper invitation, so I waited for you. I would have stayed all night. Actually, I almost called the police, but no one else showed up, so I figured you were still safe. Judging by the looks of those guys who were trailing you, it didn't seem like it was a friendly retreat. So, what's the story, and where do you want me to go? He asked. Take me home, I urged. Then I began to explain all the events of that night. Navarro was unbelievably shocked. He expressed his disbelief that Kaitlyn would betray me in the way that she did, and the drug angle was egregious. He just shook his head at her blatant betrayal. What do you want me to do? Navarro asked as he pulled up to my house. Why don't you park behind my building? I think Kaitlyn will be coming soon. If she comes alone, I'll talk to her while I'm packing. I hope you'll let me stay at your place for a day or two until I get settled. Of course. You don't even have to ask, but all I have is a spare couch to offer you in my small apartment. The couch will be perfect, Navarro, thanks. If Kaitlyn gets home alone before I go, I'll confront her tonight and make my intentions clear. If she brings any goons, I'll slip out the back door and escape with you to your place. Hold on, I have a better idea. I pulled the cash from my pocket and stuffed it into an empty fast food bag he had on the floor of the car. We placed the bag under the spare tire in his trunk. I might need backup. You got a weapon? Silly question. Navarro mumbled and pulled it out from the dashboard. He tucked the pistol into his waistband and followed me inside. I had packed 2 suitcases and was zipping up the second one when I heard the front door unlock. Navarro snuck into the closet as Kaitlyn rushed in to greet me. Thank God you're here. I was worried you'd left when I arrived. I'm so sorry. We need to talk. The now contrite woman exclaimed. You came alone? Or where are the 5 roosters you were just sucking on? I asked. No one else came, Army, she frowned. It's just you and me. I want to apologize for my behavior earlier tonight. I got caught up in the excitement of it all. I was supposed to be hyping people up, and I guess I overdid it. I scoffed. Hyping those guys up? They'd already paid. It's not like you'd get more from them. I suspected I knew. It was advertising for future events, future opportunities to have her. Like the video of her masturbating. I wondered if it showed her face. Vorkath said he wanted those guys going crazy for me. He wanted me as entertainment. Kaitlyn stated. Did she believe all of that guy's nonsense? I wondered, those arm wrestlers weren't going to be distracted by some broad when it was time to compete. I was hoping you'd win, but I had to play both sides of the fence so we could make at least 20 grand to cover starting a family. You were amazing. You put Vorkath in his place and showed all of them what you're made of. You saved me from a night of debauchery, honey. Now the entire 40 grand is ours, and I'm happy to be your love slave all night, instead of having to submit to someone else. That was a lie, and she knew it. She was eager to have Vorkath in his office. That wasn't acting. I don't recall that, Kaitlyn. I distinctly heard you say, go Vorkath, crush him. Show that little punk who the real man is here. Finish him so I can shove you between my legs. Finish him, now. She was gracious enough to look at the floor for a moment. Like I said, I was playing both sides of the fence. After we divorce, you can have sex and suck any man you want on both sides of the fence without my objection, I seethed. Divorce? You can't be serious? All of this tonight was about us making enough money to start a family? I want your children, Army. Not Vorkath's and not anyone else's, but yours. This was just a one-time event, Army. Vorkath swore you didn't have a chance to win and that you wouldn't remember anything about it by morning. Yeah, divorce. The point is, you'll always be a cheating whore whether I remember or not. And you'll do it again. You cheated on me, Kaitlyn. You sucked those guys off today. And to make your betrayal worse, you were perfectly fine with me being held against my will and drugged. I told you and everyone there that they would have to kill me before I let them drug me to erase my memory, and you still continued with the plan. That was actually your main concern. Still, if you'd stopped to listen to what you were saying, that I wouldn't remember your night of debauchery. It's now clear that I married the wrong person. I did not cheat on you. I've never had sex with anyone. Even former President Clinton said that oral sex doesn't count as sex. Do you believe your own lies? You let any man there fondle your breasts. You spread your legs and let Vorkath grope you in front of me. You heard him describe the two of you doing everything except having intercourse. Do you seriously think I'm going to stay with you if you did not cheat? You can call it whatever the hell you want, Kaitlyn, but I call it cheating. You were unfaithful to our marriage and to your wedding vows. And the only reason you didn't get fucked by that prick right then, and there is because he lost to you in an arm wrestling match. Otherwise, you'd be straddling him right now and all night long, while the other pricks who are tied up to the 5 you tasted would be beating me to a pulp to force me to take drugs to make me forget everything. I'll never trust you again for the rest of my life. We'll never have children together, even if you had $1 million. Divorce is the only way forward for me. I raged. She began to cry uncontrollably. No, you can't mean that. You're just upset. I'll never give up on us, Army. We belong together forever. The tense atmosphere was suddenly interrupted by a knock on the door. I wonder who that could be? To be continued, thanks.